The story begins with the main character, Lila, running through a grand, dimly lit palace hallway, clutching an ancient scroll. The sound of heavy footsteps echoes behind her. She's being chased by palace guards. The scroll is glowing faintly, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. Lila must reach a secret chamber before the guards catch her, or everything she has worked for will be lost. She has a clear objective. The chamber holds the answer to a mystery about the prince she's betrothed to. The palace is eerie and ancient, with shadows dancing on the marble walls. A storm rages outside. Lightning briefly illuminates a hidden passage ahead. Through her quick thinking and agility, we see she's resourceful and determined. Her inner thoughts hint at a deep emotional conflict. She's risking everything to uncover a truth she's afraid to face. As Lila pushes open the heavy door to the chamber, the guards burst into the hallway. She slips inside just in time, but the scroll suddenly burns brightly, and she gasps at what she sees before the door slams shut. The chamber is vast and circular, with walls covered in intricate carvings that shimmer faintly in the glow of the scroll. In the center of the room stands a pedestal with an ornate crystal orb. The air hums with an otherworldly energy. The storm outside seems to intensify, thunder rumbling as if in response to Lila's presence. The room feels alive. Lila senses the carvings shifting subtly, as though they're watching her. The scroll's glow syncs with the pulsing of the crystal orb. It seems to draw her closer, as if guiding her. A faint voice emanates from the orb, speaking an ancient language. Lila can't understand the words, but they send shivers down her spine. For a moment, Lila hesitates. She's terrified of what she might uncover, but knows she can't turn back now. Her thoughts reveal her desperation. If this truth destroys me, so be it. I have to know. Lila places the scroll on the pedestal, and the carvings on the walls burst into vivid, blinding light. The orb starts spinning, faster and faster, as the room trembles. A deep, commanding voice rings out. Do you dare seek the truth about the prince? The voice from the orb demands a response. Speak or leave. Only the bold uncover the truth. Lila feels an invisible force weighing on her, urging her to flee but grounding her to the spot. She speaks with trembling but resolute words. I've waited my entire life for him. If there's a secret, I'll face it. The room grows eerily silent before the orb replies. Then, be ready to bear the cost of knowing. The orb projects vivid images into the air, showing the prince in a clandestine meeting with a shadowy figure. The conversation is muffled, but key phrases like betray her and sacrifice must be made are chillingly clear. Her mind races, is he planning to betray me? Or is this someone manipulating him? Doubt and anger swirl within her, but she knows she must see more to understand. The carvings on the walls start to shift, forming shadowy figures that step into the room, advancing toward her. The orb warns, prove your worth or leave empty-handed. The shadows encircle Lila, and the ground beneath her begins to crack. She clenches her fists, whispering, I'll fight for the truth. The scene ends as she prepares to confront the shadows, determined to reach the truth no matter the cost. The shadowy figures lunge at Lila. She narrowly dodges, grabbing a broken torch from the ground. Swinging the torch, she realizes the figures dissolve in light, but reform quickly in the darkness. The orb whispers, illusions fade with clarity. Find the source. Lila notices a faint glimmer of light emanating from a corner of the room, a potential escape or solution. Lila darts toward the glimmer, dodging shadowy strikes. The room begins to collapse, debris falling, and a chasm opening beneath her. Reaching the light source, she discovers a hidden lever. Pulling it causes the shadows to freeze, but the orb warns. The truth demands sacrifice. The lever activates a portal, but its swirling depths seem unstable and dangerous. With no other options, Lila takes a deep breath and leaps in, clutching her pendant, the one given by the prince. Lila lands in an unfamiliar, yet strangely familiar place. A lush garden where the prince stands in conversation with the same shadowy figure from the orb's vision. The words, "She doesn't need to know," echo in the air, stopping her in her tracks. The prince turns and locks eyes with Lila, his expression a mix of shock and anger. Lila, trembling but resolute, whispers, "I know there's more. Tell me the truth, or I'll find it myself." The screen fades to black as the prince takes a deliberate step toward her. As Lila confronts the prince, his demeanor shifts. His regal charm gives way to something colder and more calculated. He admits, "I am not just a prince. I am a guardian of the veil between worlds, and you've seen what lies beyond." The orb reappears, revealing it had its own agenda, to draw Lila into the Shadow Realm as a replacement guardian. It strikes a deal with the prince. If he hands Lila over, his kingdom will remain untouched by the shadows. The prince hesitates, torn between duty and his feelings for Lila. Lila, realizing she has been a pawn all along, takes matters into her own hands. She activates the orb with her pendant, disrupting its influence. The orb shatters, releasing a wave of shadows that begin to engulf the garden. The prince and Lila must now work together to seal the realm for good, but the cost is steep. One of them must stay behind. In a moment of clarity, Lila chooses to stay. She steps into the heart of the shadow vortex, using her pendant to stabilize the worlds. The prince reaches out to stop her, but she whispers, "The truth set me free. Now it's my turn to protect you." As the vortex closes, the shadows retreat. The prince is left holding the shattered pieces of her pendant. The garden returns to serenity, but the prince's expression is haunted, knowing Lila's sacrifice was both brave and final. A single flower blooms, where Lila disappeared, glowing faintly with her essence. The prince whispers, "This isn't the end, Lila." Somewhere in the Shadow Realm, Lila awakens, her eyes glowing with newfound power. With the shadows sealed and the realm protected, the prince returns to the kingdom, but his heart is heavy. The streets are filled with celebrations of his victory, but his eyes are always searching the horizon. Lila's gone, and though the kingdom is safe, it feels incomplete. Alone in his chambers, the prince sits with the shattered pieces of Lila's pendant. He reflects on the sacrifice she made. He had been so consumed with his duties that he failed to realize the depths of her courage and love. "I never asked you to stay, Lila, but you chose to." The prince walks to the garden where Lila once stood. The flower that bloomed after her sacrifice still glows faintly. He kneels and presses the pendant's pieces into the soil beneath the flower, a symbol of the love and hope they shared, no matter how fleeting. Just as the prince turns to leave, a cloaked figure appears at the garden's edge. It is an old woman carrying a small vial of glowing liquid. "I have something for you, Your Highness," she says cryptically. "A gift from the realm you've saved." The woman offers him the vial, explaining that it contains a piece of Lila's essence, a sliver of the power she used to protect the worlds. "You can bring her back," the woman says, "but you must be willing to sacrifice something in return." The prince is torn. He knows the risks of meddling with the balance between worlds, but his desire to bring Lila back to him clouds his judgment. He makes the decision to use the vial, hoping it will restore her to life. As he drinks the potion, the garden around him begins to shift. The ground trembles. A flash of blinding light envelops the garden. When it fades, the prince finds himself standing alone in a strange, unfamiliar world, a place between realms. "This is where the dead reside," the old woman's voice echoes. "You've chosen to follow her. Now, you must face the consequences." In this liminal space, the prince faces a vision of Lila, alive but different. She is no longer the woman he knew, but a guardian of the realms, bound by the magic of the pendant. "You shouldn't have brought me back," she says, her voice distant. "Now we're both trapped between worlds." Realizing that their love is doomed to remain in this strange place, the prince understands that to free Lila and allow her to pass on, he must remain behind in her stead. I'll stay here with you, Lila. We'll protect the worlds together. Lila's eyes soften, a faint tear escaping as she smiles. You've always been my hero. But this is our final goodbye. The prince nods, knowing that love, sacrifice, and duty have led them to this inevitable conclusion. As the prince steps forward to join her in the space between realms, the garden in the real world blooms once again, stronger and more vibrant. The flower that once symbolized their love is now a beacon of hope. The prince and Lila's story is not one of ending, but of transformation into guardians of the realms. As the realms settle into a new equilibrium, the last line of the story lingers. In the space between worlds, love does not die, it evolves. The prince, having made his choice and accepted his fate, watches as the kingdoms slowly begin to rebuild from the chaos. The land is recovering, and the citizens are rebuilding their homes and lives. The air feels different, quieter. An eerie calm has settled over the realm. His heart, though filled with sorrow, is at peace. He walks through the castle halls, his gaze falling on the empty places Lila once inhabited. Though Lila is gone, there are small signs that things have shifted. In the royal gardens, the flowers have begun to grow with an unusual vibrancy, unlike anything seen before. The prince notices this change and wonders whether Lila's essence still lingers, transforming the world she once loved. One evening, a mysterious figure appears at the gates of the palace, a cloaked man who is both familiar and foreign. He speaks in riddles, hinting at a deeper truth. The prince's sacrifice was not in vain, but the journey does not end here. He disappears just as suddenly as he arrived, leaving the prince with more questions than answers. After the encounter, the prince feels the weight of something unknown pressing on him. He begins to question everything, the realms, the sacrifices, and whether there might still be more to the story. He starts searching the royal archives, looking for clues, something that could shed light on the cryptic visitor's words. Among the ancient scrolls, the prince discovers a hidden message, written in an old, forgotten script. It speaks of a cycle, one where every guardian of the realms must eventually face the choice of stepping into the void to protect the balance. But their journey does not truly end there. He begins to piece together a revelation. The sacrifice may not have been permanent after all. The mysterious figure returns, this time not in the shadows, but standing before the prince in his chambers. The realms are in balance, but they are fragile, the figure says. Lila's story is not over. Neither is yours. The prince's heart races as the figure pulls back the cloak, revealing a face he recognizes. Someone from his past, someone thought lost forever. The figure, now revealed as an ancient guide, speaks of the ongoing battle between the realms. The prince's decision to remain in the liminal space has started a new ripple effect, one that may bring Lila back, or pull them all into another war. The price you paid has not gone unnoticed, the guide warns. You may have given up your place in the living world, but the power you unleashed will awaken things long forgotten. With a heavy heart, the prince realizes that the adventure is far from over. His journey and Lila's is tied to the forces of fate, and they may have to face something even more dangerous than before. The worlds are not as safe as they seem. The guide leaves behind a cryptic map, one that leads to a distant place, where the prince will have to confront the unknown, perhaps even revisit the liminal space, where Lila is still bound. The prince, torn between grief and duty, begins to prepare for his next steps. The kingdoms need him, but there's a pull, a connection to something much greater. He must make a choice, protect the kingdom or follow the map that leads to unknown dangers, hoping it will lead him to Lila. With the map in his hand, the prince stands at the edge of the palace, looking out toward the horizon, knowing that his fate is forever intertwined with Lila's. Just as the prince steps into the unknown, a gust of wind blows past him, carrying a whisper, a faint, familiar voice. I'm still here. The prince freezes, his heart racing. It was Lila. Was it truly her voice? Or a figment of his imagination, a lingering echo from the realms? He turns back, the palace behind him now feeling like a distant memory. The final chapter may have ended, but the story is far from over. The prince walks into the unknown, the map still in his hands, his heart uncertain. As he disappears into the distance, the world holds its breath, waiting for what comes next. Love does not end, the voice whispers, fading with the wind. It simply evolves.